Good day and welcome. We are here with Richard, and you are a social media consultant. Am I correct?
Indeed. Passionate about social media.
Cool. So, do you want to introduce yourself for me, please? Just tell me what you do exactly, and just do a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. What is the best way? I don't consider what I do to be work per se, because it's fun. Also, to give you a quick background, I didn't study this. It wasn't my intention to get into this, but it's kind of something that just came so naturally. So I had a stint in engineering. I was actually studying civil engineering at one point, and just naturally came to me while I was listening to podcasts that there's something in the advertising and marketing, specifically social media, that really drew me in. And it's been 5 years now, so everything I know self-taught, just down to being inquisitive and discovering and looking and finding and attending the free University of Google, and just really trying to hone in on what social media is and where it can go. And I almost want to say that there's something inside of me that just sees the massive potential that social media has and how people can use it. And essentially what we do is we work with clients, with brands, with entrepreneurs and online personalities to better understand social media, not only for business purposes, but for advertising purposes and to drive results at the end of the day. So heavily focused on social media across all the platforms, and essentially that's my job.
Nice. So today I'm going to talk more about social media. You know me as I'm a lot more into the camping and things, but I also have my own social media platforms and things. And with you having a good knowledge about social media, I thought it might be an interesting podcast to chat to social media people, chat together, and then just to get something more information for everyone that wants to know about social media and just talk.
Love that.
So give me a quick history about yourself. Where did you grow up? You briefly touched on it now about what you studied and just the whole process to how you got to where you are today.
Sure, by hook or by fluke. So I have had great opportunities in my life. I attended school, I did relatively well at school, and all through kind of growing up, grew up in Pretoria, through growing up, my strength was always in mega structures and extreme engineering, and so it was kind of naturally maths and being inquisitive about understanding the world has always been something that's interested me. And naturally, engineering was something that piqued my interest because there's the creativity aspect. Now I understand it better, but there's the creativity aspect, there's the thinking aspect, the logical aspect, and I think that's kind of my strengths, is understanding something and implementing it. So being involved in engineering, and I studied it for too long. I didn't finish, but I was 2 subjects away from the end. And to cut a long story short, I was on the roads. There was a company that actually gave me a bursary, so massive thank you, and we will still see each other. But they gave me a bursary to go out and work on the roads. During this time, I kept myself busy listening to podcasts. Started off with, I think at the time it was conspiracy theories and just things entertaining, and then it kind of went over into like life motivation, and I thought like, okay, cool, some financial advice maybe, and just generally keep yourself not entertained but learning. And it was a great outlet. And somewhere down the line, they started speaking about advertising to a certain degree, but more so digital advertising. And I knew absolutely zero squat about anything to do with digital advertising. But the concepts that they were talking about, and to put it into perspective, the thing that caught my attention is something that you can do on Facebook. It's very powerful, is the Facebook pixel. So it was a concept that they were talking about, and to give you an idea, if you land on a website and you look at a product, doesn't matter how you got there, but if you look at something and you open up Facebook or Instagram or one of the other social platforms, that ad is in front of you because you've landed on a page. That to me was cool. That piqued my interest, because that is what we refer to, which I later learned is called remarketing. And they really started investing my time to try and understand how this new ecosystem works and how this new platform and Google and SEO and AdWords. So when I started out, before I started, this kind of started piquing my interest, and I thought to myself, I'm going through and it was a struggle. It was during the fees must fall time. There were a few other external factors that were really making studying really challenging. And this came along, and it was almost like it was an answer to a question that I never asked. And naturally, I just started getting into it, spending my free time, and I worked on the roads listening to these podcasts for probably close to a month or so, and just got the I guess the confidence essentially to go back to my director at the time and say to him, unfortunately, you've given me an opportunity that 99% of people don't get, but I know that it's potentially spent somewhere better, spent somewhere else on someone else, but this is what I think my new life. I jumped in not knowing shit. I'm going to be completely honest about that. So again, and I think it's important to say that the digital landscape is super wide.
Yes.
There's, you've got your website, then you've got Google, which has SEO and AdWords, and YouTube and those ads, and then you've got Facebook, and there's all the different platforms, there's newsletters and email and landing page, and there's so many aspects to digital advertising and marketing. But at the time, I didn't know this. So I went down the rabbit hole and taught myself Photoshop and Illustrator and Premiere Pro. Then I needed to obviously know websites, so I got into WordPress and WooCom and PrestaShop, and I developed like OpenCart websites at one stage. Then I started dabbling in the code because I thought, you got to do great websites, you need to know how this stuff functions. So do a little bit of coding at the same time, learning Facebook ads, SEO principles. I started out like I think every agency owner tries to start out, and that's to be a full stack agency. So I could design logos and I could do this, and I try to teach myself all of this. And the more I was doing it, I was realizing like this is such a broad landscape. And humbly, I said to myself, okay, well, obviously I'm either going to build a full stack agency and employ people to do that specifically across all these different things, or the part that really caught my attention from the get-go was social media. And to cut a long story short, that is essentially where we've transitioned our attention into. It has become I wouldn't say my life, but that is, I heavily invested into social media, and really believe in the opportunity that it can give people. So from stopping the studies to now going into a whole new journey, not knowing anything, it was an absolute rabbit hole to just try and figure this out, and then humbly stand back and say, okay, cool, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what I understand better. In hindsight, I think the value that it adds is I can obviously now have conversations with different people. So when you speak of the timeline on Premiere Pro, I'm able to understand, and we can speak the same language. If you speak about f-stops and all these other aspects, although I might not freaking know where to put the little button, I know what it does, and I know the effect of it, and the feeling it can give something. So even in the hosting space and the website space, I've got all this general knowledge, and I'm able to communicate, potentially not do it better, but my speciality, and specifically our company, is social media. So we are incredibly invested into social media.
And your company is Aiden Media, correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
Correct.
And then I found it interesting that I know a lot of engineers and architects and a lot of those industry people fall into social media and have a love for social media. I wonder if there's a connection. Like you said, it's the mathematics and the curiosity behind knowing something that lurks them into social media, to wanting to know how it works. And I guess it's like a building, but it's online.
It is.
Everything has it needs a structure, a code. The concrete, there's pictures, for example, so everything is kind of linked into one another.
Yeah, I think for me, what initially drew me in was the ability to, through this remarketing concept and Facebook pixels and ads and everything, you can essentially manipulate attention. But in order to do that, you need to have a strategy. And to have a strategy, you need to think about logical steps for things to happen. And so I guess to a certain extent, there's a bit of an engineering background, but more so the algorithm. People are fascinated with the algorithm and trying to hack and understand this thing. And I guess at some point it was something that well, still, I mean, it's interesting to me, and we work with it every day, so we're aware of it. But that in the beginning, because it's a data-driven thing, and because advertising is data-driven, numbers-driven, calculations-driven, there's aspects of mathematics and data, and I think that kind of piqued my interest in the beginning. And then through learning and through doing and through failing and trying, I essentially just understood kind of where my strengths lie, and that's essentially why we've niched down. But I would definitely argue that an engineering background has helped quite a lot. And yeah, I think it's that creative outlet. I mean, engineers take an idea, and using mathematics and understanding of principles and all sorts of mechanics, they are able to build these superstructures, which it's incredible to see once it's done. In my case, it's incredible to see that I put X amount of money in and then I make 10 times back. We average on some of the campaigns that we run, I mean, we've had 25 times return on ad spend. So I sometimes ask myself, like, why why do people play the lotto? Because it is, and I'm not saying it's every single time, but there's so much potential for you to really make a great return on your investment if you're in business, running products, selling things online.
But with lotto, the percentage to win is very small.
Indeed.
Minute.
Indeed, and you can't explain that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's chance.
It's luck, yeah.
It's chance. It's absolute chance. Where here, it's strategy. It's, yes, there's variables which we don't always have control over,
like the algorithm,
or the time of the month, or external trends and other influences. But it's still at its core, there's still that thinking, and it's still that planning and the logical steps that need to happen. And I think that's what fascinated me.
And when did you start Aiden Media as the company?
Shoo. So
your first post is in 2019.
Look at you. Can you show me that post? I think I still probably spook and pluck that thing together with Canva at some point. And I'll be completely honest. So initially, I actually didn't even realize when I'd started the company, because I wasn't like, okay, today Aiden Media is now taking ground. So it would have been early in 2019, but specifically probably late 2018, because that is where I made that transition, made the decision, and started on this spare room with a spare table, figuring this out. It's actually quite a cool story. So my first piece of equipment, like I was a student, I was earning a small income, but sure, my expenses were low, but at the time I probably wasn't really entrepreneurial, to be completely honest. And through learning and trying and doing it, so I built myself like this laptop, but it was a powerhouse of a laptop. I think it was a Dell. It's a workstation, so it's like a box deal, but it had either an i7 or like a Xeon processor or something, like a really powerful processor. And I knew this would be great, but you can't operate it without it permanently being plugged in. So I spook and plucked my first laptop together using like a piece of old hard drive here and a piece of RAM out of an old laptop, and built this thing. And that was my workstation. And that's where I was able to start designing and start doing video editing and to be able to export. And the logo, our current logo, still hasn't ever been redesigned. And I actually did that myself on Illustrator.
Oh, wow.
And I've passed it on to designers, and the feedback that I've had is there's nothing we can do. Like if that's how you want the logos, I don't want to change the look, but I might want to maybe make the path slightly more complex, or make it. And the feedback is just, no, it's perfect. And I did that with the zero. I think I had like YouTube open here. And like
tutorial on this side.
So like, wait, okay, pause. But where's that button now? And that's literally how I started. And yeah, so since 2019, so we're going almost on 5 years.
Wow, well done.
Thank you.
With you saying about the tutorial on the one side, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people come to me and ask, how did you do this? How did you find this out? Or how do you know all this stuff? A lot of the times it's just YouTube.
Yeah.
I taught myself. I did go to film school, but I also only did 2 years, and I just wasn't in the mood for it anymore. But a lot of the stuff they taught us there I already knew. I taught myself before that already, knowing I want to go to film school.
Yeah.
So I started to teach myself what we're going to learn, just to get a bit of a jump ahead. And I just brought up a tutorial, had the program, like you said, look at it, pause, okay, try and find that button doesn't work, and click buttons, see what it does.
Just try.
Take something not important, don't take a client's work and do it, but take something not important and just click buttons. And a lot of people think you need to go study something. With social media and digital space these days, you can learn almost everything. Don't become a doctor by watching YouTube tutorials, but in a space where we are, if you, like you, started off just by intrigue, looking at a tutorial, how's this work? Oh, okay, cool. And once you do it 2-3 times, it's kind of ingrained, and then you can do it without watching the tutorial, and then you grow from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just
to me.
teaching
So
yourself.
I have this concept, and for my employees sitting here on the left, my team, I like to rather say, and Liam, who's recently just joined us, when I said to him, I said, try. You can't break it. Like the worst that can happen is we can realize that you've published the complete wrong ad, or you've accidentally used the wrong image. But the beauty of social media specifically is if you had to print a big billboard and there's a spelling error, or the product's run out, or there's no more stock, or whatever, you've already paid for that space. And now there's a spelling, now it's a redesign, now it's going to take the billboard. In our case, it's okay, we'll just switch it off. And it instills a little bit of confidence in just try.
Or you edit the text and
edit
fix
the text. Yeah, sure. Obviously like priority number one, make sure before you post. But with design work or with trying to work with Photoshop, people are scared to just click the button. Another program breaks.
Yeah.
Just click the button and see what it does, and then kind of go on that rabbit hole. And then I think I did it at one stage. Well, I know I did it. Adobe Illustrator it's intense, man. Like it's hardcore. So when I started, like I'd hover over the little icon, and then you see it says like snipping tool. I can't even remember. Is it like snipping tool or something? And then okay, snipping tool. Okay, snipping tool. And then you get to like different. Okay, snipping tool, Adobe Illustrator, and then you find tutorial, and then you kind of go down that rabbit hole, and you just follow and go, and just keep trying. So yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just that concept of just do it. Just try. Just try. That's been the most progress that I've ever made is just try.
Yeah, you can't break it. It's just you'd reset, and then you reset your program. Worst case scenario, and then you carry on.
Absolutely.
And then I wanted to ask you. You said about the billboard. So, explain to us. South Africa is very far behind in the digital space, especially social media. So, explain to me why social media is so important, why businesses should put a lot of focus on it, and also why they should choose social media over traditional media, for example. So my previous work was at a big digital company. They preferred doing everything digital. They had no traditional media. Yeah, they had a billboard or two up, but that was just to play along with the game. But they didn't do any traditional media, and they just focused solely on digital space. Mm-hmm. And slowly but surely, all their competitors are dying out that were in the traditional space, and they didn't have a digital place in place. Mm-hmm. So now suddenly they're sitting there
and now they're the front runners.
Yes, sure. And the other people are sitting there like they can't play catch up. It's too late.
Yeah, because they're years ahead.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of companies in South Africa, I find, so you must just confirm from your side or argue with me, that companies don't understand that. It's still, South African companies are very traditional. They still like to put a article in a magazine, which costs you 70, 80, 100,000 rand. If you put that money behind a digital campaign, you will get a lot more reach.
Yeah.
And it won't end. Digital doesn't, like a magazine, that's for one publication.
Correct.
Once someone's read it, they chuck it away or they put it in their bookshelf. Where digital space, it'll be there in your archives, it'll be a few months down the line on your thing.
Yeah, exactly. Reuse it again, repurpose it. Yeah. So, this is a great question. I might be biased to a certain extent, so I'll say that from the onset, but to me, there's more questions that need to be asked. I don't think necessarily it's just digital is better than traditional. I'm biased in the capabilities and the opportunities that digital gives you, as simple as spelling errors. Sure, don't make spelling errors, it happens. Now you've printed a billboard or you've misprint something, and the costs just to redo that is 100 times more than the industry that we are in. However, to me, there's more questions that need to be asked. First and foremost, what is the company and where are they going to see the most success?
That's true.
Because the question you need to ask yourself is, if you're using any social platform, in fact, any channel, what is the point of posting there if your clients aren't there? So let's start there. What is the point of putting something in a magazine if your clients aren't there? That's the one aspect is choosing maybe the right platform specific to your clientele or your product or the result that you're trying to get, because each channel tends to give different results, different time frames, works better in different industries. So there's that. Then, in my opinion, there's definitely still a space for traditional. By no means it should be excluded. I, for one, like the fact that we don't have to break down trees to print magazines. But like we tell a lot of our clients is, if you really have to, and I'll say this, if you really, really have to print a pamphlet, at the least put a QR code on it. At the least try and see how can you integrate the traditional offline marketing and try and bring it back online.
Make it a hybrid.
Like I look at people that drop these pamphlets at robots or traffic lights, if you've got international viewers, at traffic lights or in your post box or wherever, and you're going to take it and you think, oh, this is a cool thing. But now for me, because I work in the industry, I'm thinking, all right, what's the psychology? Like, what is the customer journey? How do I buy this product now? And then I look and I'm like, okay, so now I've got to go www. Potentially make a spelling error there, potentially someone calls you lose your attention, whatever, or 07, whatever the number is, and now you've got to try and, hey, I got this pamphlet. Now I'm thinking, so if you really had to print that pamphlet, because maybe we could debate where there's an opportunity to better use a pamphlet, but I can't really think of one right now. But if you genuinely had to, and I mean really, really had to use this, at least put a QR code on it. Put a QR code that takes people to your website. What starts happening, and we do it with business cards, is if you put your QR code on a business card or on a pamphlet or in the magazine, great example is if you really have to go in the magazine and it makes sense and you've got the budget for it, to mention that you are at least investing on other channels before you've chosen this one, at least put a QR code of some sort and try and bring it back to digital. So the customer journey from that pamphlet could be scan the QR code, go straight onto the website, at least look at the product that pamphlet is communicating, but now in the back end you've got the pixel.
Yeah.
So now I go and run an ad on Facebook saying everybody that's landed on this product page, show them this ad if they haven't bought anything. So now imagine, and this is people are watching and they're watching us, imagine now you go about your day and you think, oh, well, that's a cool product, and then tonight you lie in bed and you're like,
the ad
like were these guys like, yeah, outside my house? No, there was just a bit of a strategy there, taking the offline traditional way of advertising and bringing it back online. So there's an example. So I wouldn't say, again, I'm biased because I know what the costs in versus the results back are, and I know what the opportunities are. I think social media, and yes, South Africa is slightly behind because I don't think we embrace everything. Yes. We don't have as much access to everything, and even the platforms themselves, there is more functionality in the United States than there is available to us. Some of the functions on the platform fall away for us while they remain there. So we see these things on the daily, but at the end of the day, I think, yes, we're slightly behind, but I also think that businesses still need to get into that mindset of, wow, these are the opportunities. I mean, we've worked with some really great and big clients, and then you go and look at something as simple as the pixel and it's just not there. Yeah. So either they're naive or they're uninformed, or they don't know this new realm. And I think that's maybe where most of the focus needs to be.
But listening to your argument now and thinking to myself now as well, I think it's not necessarily just the businesses. You saying about QR code now, it still takes me, who's a tech savvy person, a minute or two to try and figure out where my QR scanner is and how to get there.
Absolutely.
Where if you have a less tech savvy person, that they wouldn't have a clue to know where to look for the QR code. They just give up. They see it there, it's like, oh, it's a QR code. They know what it is, but they're not going to go through the effort of. They'll rather go through the effort of typing out the URL.
Sure.
Versus that.
Absolutely. So my debate would be again. Then, if it's difficult to find the QR code, was the pamphlet effective in the first place? Was the design effective? Was the way, the layout? And you have to understand that something like a landing page or a website, people are maybe perhaps uninformed that it's just got to have a banner and then you've got to put a couple of stuff here and some words and then like a contact us and good to go. But there's actually real strategy that goes into the psychology of what you're thinking when you land on this page, what's going through your mind, because one of the most uncomfortable things for people to do is to spend money. And there's really only two reasons that people spend money. The one is to make themselves feel better or to solve a problem. That is literally the only two reasons people want to spend money. So if it's not solving a problem or making me feel better and I immediately can see that solution, your message and everything that you've got on your website or your pamphlet needs to communicate in a specific way for me to understand what you're trying to convey. And so then I debate that, that pamphlet should be created in such a way and say, want to call us? Or take out your camera on your phone and just hover over this. So maybe better instructions, and that comes through the design side. That comes through being strategic with the design and manipulating the attention to get people to understand, what do I do with this little block thing? So yes, we could debate it that way. Again, the first time that we saw QR codes roll out on a mass scale was in COVID. That was the first, because people now saw you could do this with menus and everybody was fascinated with it. And I'm thinking like, yes, do you know how many pamphlets you guys have printed and you could have done that? Yeah. Like QR code's not a new thing, but it's new to maybe our country and the general population to understand what that is. But I believe maybe a year or two from now, it's going to become second nature, where potentially at least every second person would know what a QR code is. So at some point, you don't have to do that anymore. And I still believe that QR codes, it's so much easier to just go like that and go straight to the website. So, but yes, with every channel, it has to be debated. There has to be a strategy. And again, talk again about product and client fit or advertising what you're using. is if you know that the person is going to struggle to scan a QR code, but then you shouldn't have dropped the pamphlets there in the first place. You should have had a different approach. You should have had a different angle or a different strategy for that market segment. So, we can debate this in different ways, but essentially, I do agree we are slightly behind, but I think we are catching up.
You said about the America or Europe or other other countries having more access to better features in the apps, etc., etc. I've also picked up that, or it's a conspiracy theory, seeing that you like them, that South Africa gets geofenced. So our content that we post gets geofenced. The content does not get pushed out beyond the South African borders. So it stays within, unless it really goes viral, it gets bounced over the wall, it gets over the geofence. But other than that, it generally stays within South Africa or Southern Africa. Do you see that on other platforms as well?
I agree with you somewhat respectfully, but I disagree to a small extent, because it's not that we're prohibited from letting our content get out there, and there's a chance that things can go viral. So while we hear a certain video of this guy sitting here hitting the double digits in the millions, geez so you didn't plan for that. And I would argue that at the end of the day, what's making the decision whether or not it goes outside of our borders or even outside of our suburb is the algorithm. And again, it's not a quick conversation, because for the algorithm to start making those decisions, you have to give it something to make those decisions. So where you're spending your time, whose videos are you looking at, what type of content are you creating, and who is actually going to end up watching that. So a silly example, if I'm going to speak in a different language that not native to South Africa, it's only a matter of time before South Africans switch off. But that language might be picked up in, for argument's sake, let's say I'm speaking Indian or Chinese or something like that. At some point, more Chinese native people will start watching my content because they can actually understand. And with time, the algorithm could realize that, maybe we should promote this slightly more in China. It's not a direct answer, but that concept of the algorithm using different inputs to essentially deliver that content, that's what I think people need to be more focused on, instead of trying to hack the bloody thing.
That's very smart though. I never thought about it that way. It does make sense, because I always didn't think about what is it that it picks up. And it could even just pick up our accents. Where if an American or Australian listens or a British person listens to our English accent, immediately they'll pick up it's not one of their native languages or their native Englishes, accents. Then they switch off because they're like, it's like they struggle to understand us perhaps or whatever, and then the watch time is less.
So can I impart maybe a really easy concept to try and understand? So at the end of the day, social media, and I'm speaking now specifically about social media's business model, I'm talking about Mr. Mark up at the top. His business model is he sells attention. So if you can understand that, then you can really start understanding social media. So to put it bluntly, you get these 15 or 20 minute long freaking videos where the punchline is like in the last 6 seconds, but they start in the first 3 seconds like, oh my God, I'm about to die. And then you're like, Jesus, guys, hi, my name is Richard and I'm about to tell you. And then it's like a 20 minute, so you get those versions, and then you get those people where they've got like the balloon and they're like, woo, woo, woo. And at the end of the day, all they're trying to do is just keep your attention there. So social media is in the game of selling attention to advertisers, business owners, people that are promoting their products or their services. We buy that attention. But at the end of the day, how does Facebook know who those people are? Well, Dieter most likely spends his day looking at 4x4s and buckies and outdoor and camping and all the things that I freaking love as well. But I'm spending my time looking at advertising and technology and NFTs and things that interest me. Not just what you're consuming, but who your connections are and who your friends are. Those are some of the signals that the algorithms use. Then we go back down onto, if you're looking constantly at golf videos, then you're going to start seeing more golf content, because what Facebook's trying to do is keep you on the platform longer so that you can consume more ads so that they can make more money. That is their model. They sell attention. Beyond that, not just the content that you consume, who your friends are, but down to how much time you're on. What time do you go on? How long do you spend on? When you go on? So there's all these different variables that add to the algorithm success, beyond the hashtags, beyond the captions, beyond the SEO ability of captions. And at the end of the day, probably the most important thing, the bloody creative, you know, the actual video, the actual photo. So there's so many variables. Again, I ask the question, how do you hack that? How do you hack all those variables perfectly? Yes, you can work with it and you can leverage and try and be smart on each point, but you still can't tell me that you know exactly 1, 2, 3, that's the way to hack the algorithm. I'm sorry, I call BS.
That's why, like Mr. Beast, I know he does it, and there's a few other channels that do it. You're saying about the language thing. They've got a second channel that posts exactly the same content on the same video, but they have someone
translate it.
Yes, translate it in a Spanish language or some another language, or they've got multiple channels with multiple languages, and through these different channels they reach different audiences, and they grow each channel to massive amounts.
Correct.
Because there's such a big population that only speaks Spanish, only speaks Mandarin, only
and
speaks
that was
English.
Super clever of him to realize, because not a lot of people realize. I think Spanish is like the second most spoken language in the world. So there's that, and it's a whole market that he's missing out on. So even though he's making these really epic videos, in his case, he carries over messages through audio. He talks in his videos, so it's important for him to be able to be understood through the person watching. Yes. And so you can think to yourself, if you're a Spanish-speaking person, unless you just like looking at the moving images, if you really want context into what's happening here, it needs to be in your language. If it isn't, at some point you're going to start switching off, and that algorithm is going to start saying, okay, well, this guy's not interested, but this English-speaking person is. But this person, and it will in time start shifting more of it there, so that it can keep those people on the platform, so that YouTube can make more money. So that's essentially how it works. So him translating it gives him the ability now to infiltrate a whole new market that he never could tap into, and is essentially relying on the algorithm to push it to that market, because just through the language, just through the comments, just through being in that market segment, the algorithm over time will pick that up. So incredible strategy. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, no, he does.
Let's be honest.
There was, and he's still young as well, there was a documentary, I don't know if you've seen it, that I can't remember the name of it, that speaks about social media and exactly what you're speaking about now, about the watch time, or the time spent on the app.
Yeah.
So it analyzes, I don't know how true it is or has changed, it's an oldish documentary, a few years old, where it analyzes how long you pause on a post. So as you're scrolling, it sees like, oh, you took 2 seconds longer looking at this post or reading the caption, or for some reason you were 2 seconds longer on that post, so it clicked that over. You can actually test this on TikTok. I've done it before and it works. So if you're scrolling on TikTok and you see, for example, you on 4x4 stuff, and suddenly you find one video that's a musician singing, watch that whole video. Carry on a few more scrolls, suddenly it'll just become musicians. Absolutely. Your whole FYP will just become musicians, just because you paused or you took longer watching that one video than the other ones.
That makes complete sense. Absolutely. So again, unless you're an engineer at Facebook or TikTok or wherever, you're not going to know exactly what those signals are. But you're 100% right. That is definitely one of them. But think about it. So I think about it this way. I don't try and think about, is this now the reason why? But you've hit it on the head there. I don't try and think of how can I hack the algorithm. I think to myself, what is the logical, why would TikTok do this? Because at the most basic way, if it was on a Monday, sometimes you're keen for watching 4x4 stuff. But yeah, towards the end of the weekend, you kind of want to watch more party stuff. I'm using a general example. So if I go on a Friday and I'm not in the mood to see cars, and TikTok keeps throwing cars, at some point I'm going, oh, I'm not interested in this today, so I'll go and do something else. But what's happened is I've gone off the platform, so they don't have my attention anymore, hence I can't see ads and they're not making money. So it's in their best interest to try and keep me on there for as long as possible. So if they start seeing, and that's, you're 100% correct, because that's your actual pause time on a post. That's one of the signals, along with all the other factors, that gets taken into consideration. But you know, if Facebook sees that you're spending more time on the music artist than what you are on the car today, well, Dieter's obviously more in the mood for this today, so let's keep him. Let's kind of do that. Absolutely.
So while we're on TikTok and social media platforms, what tips and tricks do you have? Like you just said, you can't hack the algorithm, but we spoke about languages, so maybe diversifying languages a little, or putting in Mandarin or Chinese or Mandarin or Spanish captions. But what else, other tips would you give to help boost engagement and just your social media? I know engagement's an important one.
Which is also another signal that the algorithm uses. If there's a post that's getting a lot of comments, Facebook will naturally push that more, or Facebook, or to Instagram, any other platforms. But to get to your question, so can you please repeat it?
What tips and tricks would you, or like just a few, give me a handful of advice someone could use on their social media to just help them. I know one, for example, which is a pet peeve of mine, which I spoke to them earlier, is if you have a trending audio, but you upload it as an original audio, as in you don't select the trending one from the social media platform. Yes, the music is still playing, yes, it's still the trending song, but it's not linked to that song that is trending on the platform.
Correct. So that's a tip, is to rather use the in-app sounds.
Yes, use the in-app sounds.
Yes. Okay. So this is quite a broad question, because it starts at the fundamentals, and that is, where is your market hanging out? This is something that I've obviously picked up over time as well, but it doesn't make sense to, let's say, for example, you're trying to reach millennials and young people, and let's say sub 25, which you are more likely to find on Instagram, TikTok, and these platforms. It doesn't make sense to go onto LinkedIn. So in the beginning, think to yourself, where is my market hanging out? Doesn't help shouting into an open space and there's no one there to buy your product, and that's what you're doing, because now you're investing your time and your efforts, and you start losing confidence and you start giving up because it's not bloody working, but you're trying to shout into the distance and there's nobody there. So I would say, first and foremost, make sure of who are the people you're trying to reach. So entrepreneurs generally want to reach everybody. Everybody wants my product. The harsh truth is, no, not everybody does. And quite often your product is actually a lot better suited to a certain market, a certain age group, a certain area. So first and foremost, understand where your market is hanging out. Then it comes to the platforms themselves. Understand what is working on that platform specifically. You've mentioned the trending audio part, so that's something that most of the platforms have in common, but each platform here and there has its own unique ability. So now that this discussion starts going down, why would using trending audio and new features and things like that potentially help your video? I mean, we know, for example, if you schedule your content versus posting your content in the moment versus creating that content in the app in the moment is the best way. That's going to give you more results than what it is to schedule your content. So just with that concept, think about it. Imagine everybody out there got the same results whether they shot it in the app or whether they scheduled it. It's unfair to the content creators that are living in the moment, doing it, because these people with massive budgets and massive teams can do it at huge scales and schedule way more content than what you're able to create. So it would be unfair to give them the same response as what you get. So there's already one aspect to take into consideration.
But don't you think that the platforms also push that to use it in app, because now you're spending more time in their app, so they're making more money?
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't necessarily go, well, that's one of the aspects they look at, the platforms, is they want you in the app, so they want you to use the camera on Instagram, to use the camera on TikTok, because it's more time for them on their platform.
That there's also a couple of technical things, like what the sound is. Social media platforms in general are becoming very, very powerful search engines, which is a little bit scary for Google, because what's essentially going to happen there? I mean, you find recipes on Pinterest, you go and look for ideas and things on Pinterest and TikTok, and you look for tutorials on YouTube or TikTok. I mean, if you type into TikTok now, how to change a car tire, you'll find content on how to change a car tire. So the technical things are the text that you're using, the captions. Understand that it is SEO friendly. The keywords that you're using in your text, in your captions, on the actual videos themselves, all those things get read by the platform. So if you're creating the video, the sound, the captions, the audio, you're using trending audio that's in app, those are all extra data points on a technical level. Now, without trying to get too complicated, on as to how that platform is able to give you better results. Then again, you look at things like, and we knew for quite a while, if you took your TikTok video with its little watermark and you switched it over to Instagram will punish you.
Yeah, it reads the watermark in your video.
Correct.
From a different platform, a competitive platform.
Correct. So now think about why are they punishing you? Well, firstly, you didn't do any effort. You just literally took that video and posted it. I'm not saying it's wrong if you're unable to, and I mean, think to yourself, you create these really cool videos and a lot of them are in the moment. It's sometimes difficult to get that sunset again without waiting 5 more days. So you create it in app, but now you're just doing that and taking it and posting it across all these different platforms. It's unfair to those platforms and those creators who do the time and the effort. So the point I'm trying to carry across is it's not necessarily that you're doing it wrong, but understand that what you're doing has an impact, not only on the algorithm, but on the people watching it. The platforms also want you to use the platform more so for their own reasoning, and I believe because they want to keep you on it longer. But you need to use that to your advantage. So in the content that you, okay, so that's kind of the technical side. Some other, like, again, we can talk about this all day, but
it's a big rabbit hole.
It's a massive rabbit hole. But when it comes to those logical decisions and the technical data, that's when I start getting fascinated. But so that would be one, is choose the platform, understand the platform, and then this one actually comes from Gary Vee, and that is to document and not to create. So if you're not a creator, look, if you're a content creator, that's your skill. I mean, someone like you, yes, you're actually documenting because that's your journey and that's where you are in that moment, but you're actually creating high quality, fascinating, you're a content creator, videographer, photographer. But someone like me, I don't have the time to really put in the effort to create, so I document. What we're doing now is we are documenting. So everything I do and what works for me is to document my progress, document my journey, document what I'm going through, people I meet, people I see, and that becomes my content, that becomes my ideas, that becomes my network, and that's how I am able to grow my social media platforms and have something on the platforms, is because I'm constantly documenting what I'm doing. So to give you a short example, so when I speak on the radio, I'm in that moment. All I have to do, and which I do, is I just set up a camera on the speaker and a camera on myself and a GoPro against the corner to make it look cool. And although I'm in the moment talking here, I'm just documenting actually what's happening. But those 3 camera angles get put together and that becomes a long form on YouTube. Then I'm able to chop up that YouTube video to create reels. From that we can extract the audio and then it becomes a podcast. So I've taken one moment, I'm able to publish it on YouTube, the long form video. I've got all these reels and shorts which go to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Then just that concept and whatever I spoke about that day becomes a tweet, and that goes out onto Twitter. And then, you've got the audio and that goes out onto your podcast. So and then at the end of the day, if you really want to take it again, you can go to LinkedIn and create a whole post about it and create. So just from one moment, I'm now able to distribute it across 7 different platforms. And again, if I had to create in the moment, would I have to do each one of those things in app 7 times? It's impossible for me. So I'm aware that I'm being punished because I'm not creating in app, but for me it's what's sustainable. And that's the point I want to carry across, is document, don't create, but do what's sustainable for you. If you're not able to post 5 times a day, then don't post 5 times a day. Do what you can maintain to be consistent.
That actually leads into one of our next questions, is a lot of people, especially creators and perfectionists, they look at a picture and they think like, oh, this picture isn't perfect, let me not post it.
Yep.
Where social media doesn't necessarily care the quality of your picture. Yes, to a degree, and yes, it's also related to your audience. If you're a high-end photographer, that's what your audience is going to expect. But for a story, for example, it's just content. It's the content inside which is more important than necessarily the picture.
Yeah.
I use the simple example of film paint drying on a wall in 4K versus a car crash in 720p. Which one's going to get more views?
The car, definitely.
Because there's the content inside.
It's more interesting, it's engaging, something's about to happen, it's exciting.
So if you see a sunset happening, instead of, you don't have a camera on you, you're like, okay, I missed a shot.
Missed opportunity.
Grab the phone, take a shot. It's not going to be the best picture, but it's a piece of content. And your average person that isn't highly technical when it comes to photography and things might not even realize it wasn't taken on a camera.
Probably not.
They're just seeing a nice picture with a nice sunset.
Probably not.
So people, like you said, now if you don't have the time to put in the effort, then like you said, document. That's a very good word. You're just documenting the moment.
Correct.
It's not creating content for the moment, the high quality content. It's just documenting what's happening.
Yeah, look, the creation side is where you're thinking, okay, cool, and then in the 3rd second, I'm going to take the phone and I'm going to do this, and then the lights must go off and we're going to do this transition. Now you're creating, where I'm literally just recording what I'm doing. like this. We're actually documenting what we're doing and we're having a discussion. But even this can be used in so many different ways. To come back to your example there, I'd like to share this small short story. Where we're sitting here, I've dubbed the collaboration studio. So thank you for coming to my space. But the couches that we're sitting on are from a local company here in Strand called Woodbender. The carpet that we're on is also from a local company here, Persian Rug Lady, but we didn't pay for this. And the whole purpose of what we're doing here is to show people the power of social media. So these are collaborations. The point I want to make is I've had this idea for a year and a half, maybe at a minimum. We actually released videos now, and we've been busy doing this for probably about 2-3 months. So there's 14 months where nothing happened. Then I think to myself, why? And this is maybe something that is a good tip as well. Number one, I overthought it. I was more focused, and this was my little coin term that I got. I was more focused on the intro than on the info. Because at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get across is value to you, to help you understand how social media works. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to sell my creative skills. I'm not trying to sell my videos or my photos or something down those lines. So to me, it's more important to get the information out there. But I was so worried about, because you see these videos, you think, it's got to look this way, and you've got to have these lights, and you better have a 4K camera, and. But at the end of the day, it stops you from actually just getting started. And we have made more progress by just putting the cameras down and just bloody pressing record and just doing, and then figuring out, okay, cool, well, let's move that pot plant. So there's more progress in actually just starting than thinking about starting. So if I had to give a really genuinely solid piece of advice, is stop being so concerned about what other people's opinions will be, because to be honest, those opinions probably won't come in the first 4-5 months of your productions anyway, because how long does it take you to grow a channel, to get some followers, so stop worrying about that and rather be more focused on just getting that progress going. So just push the record button, suck up the emotions, and just let it go. Just start. That's honestly the best example I can, or the best advice I can share.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. Also, a lot of times I tell people, it's like, creating a social account, any platform, doesn't cost you money.
No.
So just do it. There's nothing stopping you. It can only benefit you. There's no real loss in it. You can make money out of it. You can grow, blah blah blah. You can use it to
only win.
Yeah.
But so and this is completely off record, because we completely agree with the community policies and we use the platforms like they should. But there's how many freaking fake accounts.
Yep.
So if you're really concerned about what people are going to think, and you're really concerned about your designs, but you really want to get started, just create a fake account and just start at the minimum. So you can, if that's how you have to start, then start that way. But just start. I'm not saying please don't start fake accounts. Just got to put that on the record as well.
My next question is, what platforms do you see any of the current platforms dying out, and do you see any new ones coming in that we're not aware of?
Dieter, this is a great question. So I don't see platforms dying out necessarily, because there's so much competition between the platforms to stay alive, and the front runners that we have now, and speaking specifically in South Africa, they're all very relevant, they're all very active, and each one of them have their specific place and purpose and market. So I wouldn't say that there's one dying out, but what I would say is there's incredibly healthy competition. I, for one, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, thought to myself, how cool would it be if you had a social media platform with voice notes? Like, you have video, you have pictures, you've got all the other, but you don't have voice. Now we're looking at an app that Mr. Musk has taken over, which is dubbed the One App, and that is what they're building it to become, is the one social media app for everything, payments, and we won't even go down that rabbit hole. But I don't think that this platform's going to die out. The healthy competition is going to lead to more competitive type of platforms, and I think that's going to force the platforms to really focus on what they're good at. And the knock-on effect of that is you'll attract content creators and people onto those platforms specifically. So I think for the long game, the platforms should increase in quality if they maintain that competitive edge. I think the runoff of that as well is, it's advancing tech Facebook's starting to bring in AI, Instagram is bringing in AI and chatbots and all these other things. Elon Musk is bringing in crypto payments and payment methods, and so now you can pay for things using social media. Like, well, that's weird, but it's not that weird if you think about it. That's where the world's going. That's where technology is going, and I think it's bloody exciting. So
you were saying about the voice note social media platform. I think it's WhatsApp that recently made it available that you can, on your story or status, as WhatsApp has it, you can leave your status as a voice note.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I don't think the update's come in yet, but I've seen it. It was either published online or it was like a little update I got on my thing saying you can now voice note status.
Yeah, and imagine, so that opens up a whole new market to a very specific creator who might have voiceover artists. Like, those folks are left out. What if they don't have the confidence to be on camera? So, they generally just have like a background or a landscape and then they talk over it. And that works, but they don't have their own form of creating content and they're missing out on that. So I'm excited for that. But I think what makes Twitter, to come back to what I see as platforms, Twitter I think is going to disrupt quite a bit because they're bringing in things that the other platforms may not think of now, but with Elon behind the wheel, and they're very competitive, they're very cutting edge. Things like Twitter Spaces and it's a different way of using social media. So I think that's going to be quite exciting.
I have to say, one of my favorite features on any social platform is Instagram's collaboration feature. I wish more platforms would do that.
Completely underutilized.
And it's not just saying, it's not just like a tag. It's literally, it shares that post on the other platform as well. And I see a lot of businesses also using it now, which is really nice. Because then you get two audiences in one post.
Correct.
It's brilliant. I can't believe more platforms don't do it, and I hope others do it.
I do too, and I think there's a little concept that I want to just touch on, and that's the human collaboration culture of social media. If we look at Google and websites and things, it's for lack of a better word, it's very black and white, straightforward. That's a page. You can make really cool pages, don't get me wrong, but social media to me is more human. It's different in that way that you're able to express yourself in a unique way. You're able to create, you're able to be creative, you're able to engage and have conversation. At the end of the day, it to me is more human than other forms of communication and marketing and advertising. And I think that's one of the reasons it is as successful as what it is. And if you can understand how to use that to your advantage beyond the features of the platform, and I mean it is an incredible feature, but know what the platform can do and use that to your advantage. So that's another thing, coming back to your previous question, is understanding the platform. If Instagram has that ability, use it, because the people that are not using it aren't going to get the results you are, because you're not using that new feature. But as you rightfully said, you posted from your side and then it shows up on my side. So you win out of it, I win out of it. Now we're collaborating, now we're being social. And that's why I love social media.
It's the same as what we said about starting a platform. It's with the features and tools it has, there's only wins. There's no losses in any of this that I can think of immediately.
I think social media to me generally is underestimated, maybe, or people kind of just see it as another channel and don't really invest the time to understand it. And I guess what I mean with that is people are pretty naive to the power of being able to have a human connection versus marketing through newsletters and other means. I'm not saying it's ineffective in no way, but it's a different way of communicating. And I would almost argue that people are naive in understanding that, so they're not using that to their advantage in the first place. I mean, just the ability to have your video and to speak one-on-one with another person and to create engaging content and have conversations, it's not something that's found on most other platforms. So that's a point, but I think more specifically and more importantly, it's not advertising media. Like, it's in the name, it's social media, not advertising media. So nobody opens their phone to see, like, what can I buy next? Like, what's on special? That's not why we have it. So you need to understand that and create your designs and your content and everything around that. Don't try and sell me this stuff. Engage with me, make me want to buy this. And I think that's where the creativity and the marketing side. So the industry, I think, is a little bit watered down because people just post for the sake of posting and for the sake of advertising instead of being social. And I think that's maybe something that's more worth looking at in order to drive results than trying to decide to hack the bloody algorithm.
Yeah, very interesting. I want to move on to some Instagram questions we got.
Sure.
Tim from Troopy in Africa asks, is Instagram still a thing? Refers to my previous question as well. And is it something young people in South Africa can use to earn, or is TikTok? And I want to add to that is, while after answering a question, is there, I know YouTube monetizes, but can you monetize on other platforms as well, and how?
Of course. So on all the other platforms, TikTok's gifts, that's your monetization effort.
But that's only in lives.
In lives, sure. But on something like Instagram and Facebook, you have stars. So you can also monetize on these platforms. So, but if that is your goal at the end of the day, then that's what you need to be invested in, to understand how can I monetize, how can I grow in order to monetize at the end of the day. To come back to this question here, and a great question, yes, it's still very relative. My feedback, my opinion, my thoughts, my inspiration comes from consuming content. So I take that in, I read a hell of a lot of tweets and podcasts and all sorts of different media people, and I hear what he says and I hear what that says, and then I kind of make my own decision. So to answer that question, in my opinion of it is, there's been a shift where Instagram not so long ago was looking at maybe pushing photos more so than videos, because they brought in Reels because TikTok had Shorts. TikTok had TikToks. But then what happened to, what was that, so like TikTok now?
Yes.
You know, that ability came from another app, which was Be Real.
Yes.
And it just never took off. But TikTok was able to say, we'll take this feature and use it. So the platforms, when I say they're competitive with each other, there was a big pushback from the photography community saying, you know, we came to Instagram in the first place because it was photo based, and now you guys are doing all these other things. So there's that little bit of pushback. To answer this question, it's absolutely relevant. But again, the core question you should be asking is, where's my market hanging out? Where's the people that I want to advertise to, and how can I make sure that platform, for its style, for its type of content, can I carry that out, and will I be able to do it sustainably, the right way to drive results?
So I have an interesting thing to add to that. Last year, we spoke with my previous job, we spoke to TikTok South Africa directly. And so we asked them, because TikTok doesn't give very good analytics. So we asked them to give us a general analytics about South Africa. And you would think TikTok's market, or the age market, will be young. That's what everyone assumes.
Yeah.
But to our surprise, the main users of TikTok was between 24 and 32.
That doesn't surprise
That was the
me.
ages. Everyone was expecting to be to high school or 18 and below, or let's say 21 to 18. Meanwhile, the biggest market, and it was quite a bit bigger, was 18 to 24 to 32.
It's interesting. It doesn't really surprise me, but I think, and I've had this conversation with so many people, and I say like, well, TikTok's good. Do you expect me bloody well to dance? And I'm thinking like, so the dancing phase of TikTok is kind of past now. Yes, people still use it for that, and incredible people doing incredible things, but that's not the only type of content. So I think it's more people are, and entrepreneurs and business owners again, are either ill-informed, naive, or assuming the wrong thing, that TikTok is for the 16 teeny boppers, young people dancing and doing their weird things. That's TikTok, and it's not. It genuinely isn't.
Okay, next question from Jay Ulifield 5. What are the steps to reach a bigger audience on the platforms? I think we did touch on that quite a bit.
I'd like to maybe just bring a bit of light there. So understand that getting more results and getting more engagement and growing and all these different things, it's not just one solid straight answer. Because then I could say to you, well, then just do that. But then everybody would just do that, and then that becomes too competitive. So it's understand that again, it's based on all these different variables. Yes, the algorithm, yes, choosing the right platform, then the creation part, and you know, even just the video itself. There's a whole skill in psychology that goes into creating a really great video. The first 3 seconds, we know on all the platforms that autoplays most times, unless you've got it switched off. But the first 3 seconds autoplays. So that is your opportunity to grab my attention. So if you're leaving the hook for the end of the video and you think like, you know, my product never sells. No, the content itself didn't pique people's interest. They didn't stay long. You didn't catch them. So, you know, yes, the algorithm, yes, the platform and the market, but even the video itself and the way that you carry across your message, there are so many variables that be aware of them and try and rather hone in your skills on that drive results than trying to freaking hack the algorithm. I'm going to say it over and over because it's maybe one of the things that get people off the path the fastest is trying to hack the algorithm. Just understand what it does, how it does, and what are the signals it uses, and then just try and put your attention on managing and leveraging those kind of signals.
Like we said earlier, it's a massive rabbit hole, and each aspect has its own rabbit hole to go into.
Is. And there's, I mean, just touch again is the content and all these things. But again, you know, if you want to grow and you want to invest your time into social media, understand that there's paid advertising as well, and used in the right way with the right kind of strategy, it is a huge return on your investment. I mean, 1 rand in, 25 rand back on selling products, if you've got a 25 times return on ad spend. So, you know, the opportunities are there. You just need to know how to use them. And again, I didn't learn this stuff in a textbook. I didn't go to college or university or anywhere to learn this stuff. This is in the field, Googling, trying, seeing, doing, failing, trying again. But understand, it's been a 5-year journey for me to be able to say these kind of things. So don't be overwhelmed in that first phase, like, geez, I don't know what the frick I'm doing. Neither did I. Neither did I.
Learn through. The more you practice, the luckier you get.
Correct.
Arman from Brew Crew wants to know.
Hey, like Aries.
Why you never have time for him when you're in the area?
That question wasn't in there.
Yeah, it was.
Not the one you said to me.
No, I left it out.
Why do I not have time for a month? I'm trying to think, why would he say that? Because I know this weekend there's a certain something happening, and I'm pretty sure he said to me he's too busy for me to be there. So I'll have to take it
You're
up.
throwing these questions back at him.
Yeah, right back at you.
Okay, let's wrap this up. One more question from my side is, what is your favorite
I have to mention something about Broeker, and this is in no way to promote them, but this is such a good example of social media and how you can do business on social media. So if you don't know Broeker, like, go and look at what they do. So they invite, I mean, you obviously know it, but they invite people in. They have
products. It's a very big collaboration aspect.
That's my point. It's such a big collaboration aspect, and the way they do it is so collaboration based that it just wouldn't work on a website. It just wouldn't work on a newsletter. It's so perfect for social media. But if you see what's happening, it's the new way of doing business. It's the new way of promoting your products by being social and having fun and making jokes. But at the same time, your product is front and center all day, every day. It's exactly what the billboard does on the highway, on the way to work. So, you know, there's arguments to be had here, but a lot of respect to what Broeker does, genuinely. I'll take this question up with him.
But I want to add to that as well, where I've been listening to a lot of podcasts myself, where it's an old podcast, or it started way back, and I'm only listening to it now. So, and they interviewing or having a podcast, and the guests are now very famous YouTubers who only started out back in 2009, I think, when the podcast started.
Wow, that's 10 years, 11 years, 12 years.
Yeah. So listening to them now, knowing where they are now, and listening to that podcast now, like we said, why we do social media a lot of the time is just for memory's sake, for archives.
Yeah.
So it's actually cool listening to them now, listening to how they started out, and a lot of them said back then a trending video was 1 million for them. And that's 2009 when YouTube just started. They got into the scene at the right time when it just started. But a lot of them come back to what we're talking about now as collaboration. A lot of them, most of them, 99% of them said their fame and their growth came through collaborating. Having another guest on their show, or doing a video with this person or this brand, and this. Because like you said, the collaboration is you grow 2 people at the same time. You have one audience this side, one audience this side, and you grow at the same time. This audience doesn't know you, vice versa.
And it's that cross-pollination is the word there. I think what makes it so effective, social media specifically, and rightfully said that they took the step. They just got started and just started. So again, I'm going to bring that in again, is just start. Just get going. But look what happened. They probably didn't know what the frick they were doing. They were also like, wow, this is right. And it bloody well was. So, but even that, it took them 12 years. Well, they probably saw popularity a lot sooner, but still, it's still a massive long journey. So people, I think, maybe expect overnight success, and when you don't get it, then it kind of feels like a setback, and then you've got to deal with that, and then it's a very uncomfortable space to be in. But besides that, understand that what social media is doing and how you can use it, it is the new way of doing business. People are not stupid in the sense that when an ad comes on your screen, you know this is an ad, besides the point that it says sponsored or promoted or whatever else, but you know, like, oh, okay, this guy's going to sell me something. So don't do that. Like, I don't have a problem seeing an ad. I have a problem when people waste my time with a stupid thing that I've got to watch for 10 freaking minutes to see that you pop the balloon using an earring. Great. That adds zero value to my life. So, you know, be respectful of people's time, but I think because social media, the way it operates, in the sense that we can be human with each other, that is maybe the biggest leverage point versus all the other marketing channels.
So let me wrap up with the last question. What is your favorite platform and why?
I have to say Twitter. I have to say Twitter here. It was TikTok, because TikTok to me was on the front, on the forefront. It was a new creator. They really pushed the short form video. They really brought video onto the map.
They changed the scene of video.
They completely changed the scene. So TikTok was for a long time kind of obviously on my radar, but to me, I like advancement. I like seeing how can we make things easier and using new tech and making our lives easier. So something like AI and all these things actually excites me. Yes, I understand that it's going to have implications, but so did the TV. When the TV came out, so did the telephone. When the telephone came out, people were like, oh, sheesh, it's going to change the world. Yes, it did, for the good. Like, it made life easier. Now you can like phone someone that's very far away instead of getting in like an Apple cart and having to walk for 7 days. You know, there's really some really cool upsells about tech. Yes, there are always people and unfortunate circumstances that will happen with advancement. But at the end of the day, why I say Twitter is because I feel they're always pushing the envelope. Obviously, it's got Musk behind the wheel, so yes, he's innovative, yes, he's pushing frontiers, but the capabilities of Twitter, I think people highly underestimate, and I did too for a long time, until I realized actually how powerful Twitter is in this country where we still feel we're behind the world. Imagine how it is in the other countries.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thank you very much for your time and for your expertise. I'll let the people drop comments below in the videos, and I know you're active on socials, so then you can follow up on them there if they have any more questions. Otherwise, if there's a lot of questions, we do a part 2. I think we're going to do a part 2 anyways.
Always.
Because like you said, there's a lot of rabbit holes to dive into. So we can talk about it for many parts and many hours. So yeah, thank you, and welcome to the Wulfpack Podcast.
I really appreciate it. I have to add one last thing. I realized that actually, like, I think yesterday, and maybe this is to a certain degree slightly motivational to people watching and listening, is this is year 5 that I'm in this game, and I've had the opportunity to meet awesome people and be around and see people and stuff, but I've never been interviewed. So know that it's taken me essentially 5 years before someone's approached me. Yet I've still been doing what I've been doing for 5 years, but I'm now, for whatever reason it may be, this is my first interview. So just keep believing, keep doing, and keep succeeding. Very
cool. I'm glad you're my first interviewee.
Appreciate it.
I hope everyone enjoyed it. It was very informative for me. So yeah, thank you once again.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for tuning in. Cheers.
Cheers.